Hi, we're in the second session of our series called Household of Faith, where we are looking at how we can do deeper relationships that are reflective of what God has for His community, His households of faith. You know, it's actually really hard to keep everyone together. We looked at this in the first session, where it might seem as if there is unity, but actually when rubber hits the road, even Joshua, in our anchor verse, found that everybody just wanted to do their own thing. So throughout this whole series, we're going to be looking at 5 keys to see if we can make this work. 5 keys that have been actually lived out in the life of our church and in our homes that have actually produced good fruit. The first subject we're tackling is called faithful to the mission. It's the letter F. You know, we're serving the Lord after all, so it's going to be His mission. You know, I'm reminded that faithful actually is more important than just being excellent at what you do. I don't know if you've heard this, but there was a story that always sticks in my head of when in my house outside there was a concrete walkway. And concrete is actually pretty hard. But the concrete outside my house had actually broken up into multiple pieces, and now it was unsafe to walk. And when I got a contractor in to look at it, the builder actually said to me, "Do you know what's causing this concrete to break?" It was just the wood. It was the roots of the tree that was planted next to the concrete. And I was amazed at how this would happen. How could wood, which is weaker than concrete, break up something that was so excellent? The key was this wood, this tree was alive. It was bearing fruit and it was growing. And so what would happen is when the months got cold, the concrete would contract and there'd be a little bit of space and the root would grow into it just a little bit, just faithfully, bit by bit. And then when it got warmer again and the concrete expanded, it couldn't get into the same space. And so it had to move out elsewhere. And this would happen year on year and year, and bit by bit, the wood would break up that concrete. And I think we're called to be like that. We're called to be alive and faithful, always faithful to the mission that God has given. You know, our key verse is in Acts chapter 20, verse 24, and it says this: "But I do not account my life of any value, nor as precious to myself, if only I may finish my course and the ministry that I have received from the Lord Jesus, to testify the gospel of the grace of God." We have a mission. If you're going to be a household of faith, not just at church, but in your own family even, you have to be faithful to the mission that God has given you. You know, in Matthew chapter 21, 28 and 32, Jesus tells a parable of 2 sons. One is kind of like, he's got really excellent attitude, right? He's really good. He's like the model son. "I'll do anything you want, Father. I'm really good." And when the father asks him to do something, he ends up going, "Oh, I can't make it. I'm so sorry, something came up." And then there's another son who you would not initially think is amazing. This guy initially has a bad attitude. You can read the passage during the home group. He initially has a bad attitude, but when it comes to the crunch, he changes his mind and says, "You know what, Father? I'm going to do what you have asked me." Which do you think, and Jesus does these 2 examples, which do you think Jesus is saying is the better one? It's actually the second son, the one who ends up being faithful to the mission, the one who actually does what the Father wants. When we commit to being faithful to God's mission, oftentimes we are going to hit the end of our attitude. We're going to hit the end of our own strength, where we basically go, "You know what? This is not fun for me anymore." Jesus hit that. He way past fun, obviously, right? Jesus in Luke 22, 41 to 44, he's approaching the cross and he says, "If it be your will, take this suffering away from me. But nevertheless, not my will, but your will be done. And Jesus gives us an example of what it is to be faithful to the mission, even to death on the cross. And I'm hoping that we could have a bit of a discussion about how we, in our households of faith, can have that similar determination, like the root of a tree that is alive, that bit by bit we are going to pursue God's mission and be faithful to it to the very, very end. God bless.